Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Midlife Mentors.
Hello, I'm Claire.
I'm James.
And today we are talking to you about, it sounds a little bit morbid, but we're talking to you about breakups and divorces.
Yeah, but with a positive spin on it.
Always a positive spin.
How to have a good one, what to do if it's befallen you.
How to have a good, how to have a good breakup.
Put a positive spin on it, basically.
Yeah, and also I think this is particularly relevant. I mean, it's relevant for everyone, but you know, we are the midlife mentors, and I think it's particularly relevant for people in midlife because, you know, you potentially have spent quite some time with someone, and when we get together with someone when we're younger, we're not the same people we used to be when we're a little bit older, and sometimes that can create friction. It can create, you know, difficulties in relationships to the point where you feel like it actually might be better for everyone to go your separate ways. So that's why we're never ones to shy away from difficult topics, and we thought that this might help some people out there.
Exactly, and we actually have an expert helping us on this one, don't we?
We have, honestly, the most amazing lady as a guest on this show. Her name is Sara Davison, and she's actually known as a divorce coach, but she deals with breakups as well, not just divorces. But she decided to set herself up doing this. She's been a coach for a very long time, but decided to set herself up doing this when she went through a really difficult breakup I think she did about 9 or 10 years ago. So she felt like there wasn't very much support for her, and that's why she decided to actually move into this area and help other people, men and women, to support them through a difficult time.
Yeah, so you'll be hearing from her a little bit later on. But for now, it's us whittering, I guess, about our experiences.
Yeah, so as you may know from previous episodes, you know, James and I have both been through a divorce, and you know, we just wanted to talk a little bit about our experiences. So I know some people will say, oh, you know, we don't necessarily know what your experiences are. We don't really go into very much detail. So, you know, I know for James, he'll talk about his experience, but for you, it was a big shock, and you've been together with someone for a long time.
Yeah, and it was very sudden and out of the blue. So that was very hard to deal with. Later in the podcast, I know we're going to talk about some of the feelings around that, but, you know, kind of like rejection, shame, guilt, all that stuff.
Yeah, and isolation, I think that's another real thing that comes out. People feel isolated, and that, you know, that shame, that word, I mean, we feel as human beings, that's one of the emotions that drives so much of our behaviour, actually, that's not particularly positive, is that feeling of shame. And, you know, because we feel that, we don't reach out, we don't ask for help, we don't really say how we're feeling, because especially at this age, we feel like we should have it all figured out. And when our world falls apart like that, we don't often know what to do with it. And it is a whole rebuilding of your personality, your self-identity, your life. I know from our perspective, we were lucky. I hope you take this in the right way, but we were lucky that we didn't have children. I know that must cause, you know, a whole nother level of complexity. So, yeah, I mean, my divorce didn't come it came as a shock, but not a shock. And quite frankly, I never look back now and actually and blame. Actually, I think when you come through out the other side, I know Steve Jobs always said, you only understand life looking backwards. When you come out the other side of it, even though you're harbouring a lot of anger and resentment, and, you know, it's very difficult, you do come out the other side with a greater sense of self-understanding, and also acknowledging my part to play in the breakdown of that marriage.
Yeah, exactly. You get, well, I think the very process you go through, it forces you to look inwards a little bit and figure out where you might have gone wrong. But it is a chance, putting a positive on it, it's a chance to reinvent yourself as well, because, you know, often we're in a relationship for a long time both of you will compromise, and you can end up losing parts of yourself. So it's a great opportunity to actually go, what do I want now? Who am I now? And move forward with that, which is what both Claire and I have done.
And like moving full circle on that, one of the reasons I actually ended up doing what I do now, with fitness and health and everything, is actually because I needed something in my life to give myself my power back. And this is the most beautiful thing about actually, when you're going through that, your health just falls by the wayside. You go on a bit of self-destruct, go completely on self-destruct. I know I did. I drank too much. I did all sorts of ridiculous, stupid things that I'm not proud of, but I don't regret at all because they were part of my growing. But, you know, my health went by the wayside and I just let rip. And, you know, one of the things that grounded me again and gave me a sense of self was an honouring of myself, was to fuel my body better, eat well, start exercising again, start looking after myself and respecting myself, and start growing that, because that's one of the things that goes like lack of self-worth and lack of self-respect. So actually going full circle for what James and I do, it is one of the things that we would love to say to anyone out there that is going through a difficult time, a breakup, a divorce, whatever. Actually, if you can reconnect with your body and your health and your well-being, it's the one thing that you might actually just be able to control at that moment in time and start feeling like you are in your own life again.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if this does happen to you, is happening to you, has happened to you, you know, your confidence can take a knock and things can really slide and you can end up in a bad place. And
if they do, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Sometimes you roll with that for a while, go through that phase. But like Claire said, actually sorting out what you want and taking control of your health and your fitness again is really empowering. We see this really often with our clients, that they'll come to us and either they're going through or have gone through a breakup and they're just now throwing themselves into this new identity and empowering themselves. It's amazing to see, and they follow up with us, don't they, like weeks, months, years later, going like how much their lives have changed around.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
we're going to leave you now. We're going to go into our wonderful interview with Sara, and we hope you enjoy it, and we're sending you so much love.
Lots of love.
Bye.
We're live.
We are live. So we have the wonderful, gorgeous Sara Davison, aka the divorce coach, with us today. Thanks so much for joining, hon.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure. I'm excited to be talking to you guys.
Now, divorce coach is quite an unusual sounding thing, I guess, for a lot of people. Can you tell us a little bit about what you actually do and how you got into that?
Yeah, so I've been coaching for over 20 years now. And I went through my own very difficult divorce about 9 years ago and realised that there was very little help for people struggling with a difficult divorce, or any kind of divorce, to be honest. And as I was going through it, I was looking for help to support me through, and I couldn't find anything that was really, you know, helping me deal with the negative emotions, the overwhelm, the hurt, the betrayal, becoming a single parent overnight. So I basically created my own program just to get me through my own divorce. And it was really based on combining my coaching training and my NLP master practitioner techniques and everything I'd learned really with clients over 20 years of coaching with the divorce process and the breakup process and the heartbreak that I was experiencing. So I really put the program together just to help me survive and get out of bed every day and manage the roller coaster of emotions that I was going through. But then my lawyer at the time suggested that I might help some of her clients. And then I got a book deal. My book went in as a bestseller, and it kind of took off in this niche of becoming really just focusing on breakups and divorce. So I support people. I don't give legal advice or financial advice. I focus purely on the emotional support and the practical techniques to get you through those challenges, overcoming the heartbreak, dealing with the conflict, maybe difficult personalities, managing the children through the process, and how to redesign your life, because divorce isn't necessarily the end of all the happiness. It can be, a chance to redesign your life just the way you want it, as both of you know very well, right?
Yeah, I was about to say that. Obviously, we're very open about the fact that we've both been divorced in the past. And I think that's, we didn't have children. There weren't children involved. I can't imagine how difficult that is to kind of navigate through that. But that's why we kind of really, really wanted to touch on this as a topic today with this episode, is because I think we said just before we actually started recording this, that actually I've got a lot of friends also that are going through or have been through divorces. And as you say, I don't think there is, or there wasn't very much help to navigate through that. So I think it's absolutely awesome what you're doing, actually. And I think it's really, really necessary to talk about this for people that are going through a hard time and can feel quite isolated and alone.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I felt, to be honest. Isolated, alone, embarrassed, humiliated,
shame,
angry. Yeah, shame. I mean, we worked together as well, so we had a global business together. So everybody in the industry suddenly knew about it. It was a very challenging time, and I felt very alone. And my ex moved on very quickly, met somebody and started a family within months of me and him splitting up. So it was very challenging, and my son was only 1. So there were a lot of things I had to start doing for myself, and so I think what I created was everything I wish I'd had access to right then in that moment, because I wanted to think that actually me going through this wasn't a waste. It was actually going to then help other people cope better and not have to feel that isolation, Claire, that you talk about, because you don't have to do that. There are things you can do to make it better and easier.
Sarah, just talk to us about kind of how you do that. Obviously, you've mentioned you've got your book out, which is awesome. You work with people through a program. Is that on a one-to-one basis, or is that group or on retreat? How do you work with people?
Yeah, I do quite a few different things. I've got 2 books now, actually, 2 bestsellers. One's called Uncoupling, How to Survive and Thrive After Breakup and Divorce.
Oh, I could have done with that.
And then the new one, then the new one that came out in the States, actually, is called The Split, Break Up to Break Through in 30 Days or Less. So that came out this year. So, yeah, that's going really well. So my book...
Amazing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Guys,
and then
if you're going through this, go grab it.
Can I just jump in? Because it is a really important point that you made, is like, it can be, divorce can sometimes be sudden for some people.
Yeah.
And whether it is or not, whether you feel it coming or it's sudden, it can feel, particularly at like later stages in middle age, like the end of the road and the real end of everything. But actually, like you said, it can be a chance to reconnect with yourself, reinvent and step out with a whole new beginning. So it's important. Yeah. We have that positive aspect.
I think the rediscovery is important, because it's very common and normal to get lost in a relationship. You lose a sense of yourself because you compromise. It could be little things like, he likes Chinese, you prefer Indian or whatever, and so you compromise. Maybe you don't watch the movies. He's not into rom-coms, or she's not into, horror. So you sort of become sort of a middle ground version of who you were, just to compromise and make it work well, which is natural and healthy that you've got to make compromises. But I think that makes it even harder when you come out of a long-term relationship, because you've kind of lost a sense of who you are. A lot of the work I do, whether it's one-to-one coaching in my clinic or over Zoom or Skype, or, I've got clients around the world, but I also run retreats. So people can come and work with me for 2 days in an intensive format where I take them through a self-discovery process. Because all too often when you're going through a breakup, the focus is on your ex. And whilst we need to let go of the ex, and I go through a lot of exercises to help people manage that negative roller coaster of emotions, we also do a lot of shifting the focus to you and what you're going through in that moment, so that we can rediscover your identity and look at what motivates you, what you enjoy, what your values are, what you'd like to have more of in your life going forward.
And so you can supported environment with you, with someone that's been through such a difficult time. I just think it's wonderful, especially the whole retreat thing. I was going to ask you about that, actually, because I thought that you were doing those. I think that's such an important thing, is to do that face-to-face thing sometimes.
Yeah, I think it gives people not only one-to-one with me, so I can work with them, and I always joke a bit with them to say, look, you've got 2 days, so you can't escape, which is which is why it's so transformational, really, because I've got you in a room, and there's going to be times where I'm going to push you beyond your comfort zone because we've got to break through, and that's something that you don't get as much of if you're in a coaching session, so an hour and a half every 2 or 3 weeks. When you're in there with me for 2 days and the doors are closed, we get the results. And that's why they've been, dubbed in the media as Heartbreak Hotel and things like that.
Yes, because I remember seeing that.
Fantastic.
So, Sarah, we were going to say, there's actually some statistics that have come out, like divorce, you'll know better than I have, whether these statistics are correct. But last year they were saying that divorce is at a 44-year low, but in the 50s and 60s age range, it's actually rising. Do you have any thoughts on why that might be?
Well, I think marriage is at an all-time low, so therefore divorce rates will be lower. Naturally. I also think that people live together now. It's much more acceptable to live together. It used to be known as living in sin, and now we don't really use that phrase anymore. And people will have kids, without the stigma of not being married together still now. So I think times have changed a lot, and it becomes a lot more acceptable. I think, it's becoming slightly, more fashionable to live together for a longer period of time to work out the relationship. So if there are problems, they're flagged up and people aren't going into marriage quite in the same way. There are changes afoot, though, and I've been campaigning with the working with the Ministry of Justice on the divorce reform bill, because I don't know if you all know from your divorces that you have to, at the moment, state accuse one party of blame. Yeah, so you have to allocate blame to someone. So it could be adultery or unreasonable behaviour, for example. Whereas there's been a lot of us working to get that changed, because it causes a lot of conflict, I think, from the get-go, even if you're amicable, and then one of you has to write, well, you haven't been very kind to me. Sometimes the claims have to be exaggerated. Sometimes the claims are real, but it just makes the other person get more angry and causes problems. So
it does.
Hopefully when that changes, then, maybe more people will think about getting married again. I think that the divorce rate will go up a little bit when that comes in, because there's a lot of people waiting to get divorced, and when that comes through. But yeah, I think society's really changed, and I think marriage isn't the same as it used to be. It's not necessary to have kids in the family. People can have both, have a life without that.
Yeah, it's so true you saying that, because it really does. In my experience, mine was fairly amicable, but I remember it was a difficult conversation that neither of us really wanted to have about who put, what category you go in. And as you say, it creates that kind of angst and shame and all that kind of stuff right from the get-go.
I mean, even the most amicable divorces, when you start allocating blame, it's horrible and it's unnecessary. It's very old-fashioned. The whole family law system is very old-fashioned and needs a complete overhaul. But there's a lot of us working in different areas to change things. That needs a lot of rework. But hopefully this is a small step in the right direction when this bill comes in. I think that will help a lot of people. So, yeah, we might see a bit of a fight.
That's fantastic. Now, obviously, some people probably should really get divorced. But before we get to the divorce stage, what are some of your tips to seeing whether it's actually worth saving a relationship, working on it, playing with it in some way before you go the whole hog?
Well, absolutely. Every time, I think, getting into a marriage takes a lot of time. I mean, can you remember when you were planning the flowers and the canapes and every detail? It takes ages, months and months of thought to get in. And I think in this day and age, we live in such a highly disposable society that as soon as someone's done something wrong, we think, oh, well, better get out. So I always recommend that people spend a lot of time thinking about that, because divorce is known as the second most traumatic life experience we go through after death of a loved one. It is no easy ride, and it shouldn't be rushed into, and it doesn't automatically make everything better in a lot of cases. So I created an exercise which I call No Regrets, where I ask couples to sit down together and have a honest, open conversation. Now, not everybody can do this. Obviously, it depends on the situation and what's happening. But ideally, if you can sit down with your partner and create a safe space, by which I mean, no accusations, everyone agrees to keep calm and there's no distractions. And start by listing 3 things that you both love about the relationship. So we're starting off on a positive, we're starting off on giving some positive feedback to each other. And then we identify 3 things each that we're not happy with and that we would like to improve. And that's not stated in an aggressive way or a blame way. It's just, you bring it up and you both bring up 3 different points. And then you both agree to some action points that you're both going to work on for 3 months. And I think 3 months is enough to see whether it's sustainable, to see whether you're committed to it, and to see whether it actually makes a change or a difference. And if those changes are positive and you can commit to them, great. And if they don't, then what it's done, that process has given you more clarity so that you're in a better position to make a decision.
I think it's amazing, actually, that you do that. I think it's, it's not just after the event that you work with couples on or one person on. It's actually to get to that stage whether it is the right thing to do for that. And everyone is individual and every relationship is different. So I think it's wonderful that you do that and give people an opportunity to have those no regrets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a client, a male client came to me and he said, my wife's given me an ultimatum. So when my daughter leaves in about 4 or 5 months' time for university, she said she's leaving. And, I've tried to, talk to her about things, but she's made up her mind. So he said, she won't talk to me, so I can't do the no regrets exercise. I said, well, what is she saying to you? And he gave me a list of things that she said she wasn't happy with. So we created his own independent action plan that he was going to put into place to see if he could step up to the mark a bit and change some of the things that she was saying. Now, she didn't want anything to do with counselling. She'd made up her mind. She was absolutely adamant. But what happened in the next few weeks was that she'd seen such a huge difference in him that she asked him what was going on, because she'd been asking him for years, apparently, to make these changes, and he hadn't, and he couldn't, and he wouldn't. And then suddenly he was doing them. So she actually came for a session with me herself and created her own action plan. And they're still together, 2 years on.
Wow, fantastic.
Such rewarding work. So amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I love it.
You touched on something there, actually, which was
disposable.
The relationship's kind of disposable. So this is something we talk about a lot. We think with social media now, we have this paradox where people are digitally more connected than they've ever been before. Yet it's not a real connection, so people feel more isolated. Mm-hmm. And with the rise of consumerism as well, everything seems like disposable now. Even relationships, it's just like, okay, swipe for the next one, swipe for the next one. Exactly. Is this something you're seeing more of?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it helps with the celebrity culture just fueling breakups. Like, it makes it look so easy. I mean, Miley Cyrus was in the press. I was doing some radio interviews about it the other day. She's only been with Liam Hemsworth for a matter of months, and they're married to him for 7 months, and now they're divorcing. And then, she's pictured kissing someone else, within days, So it looks like it's pain-free process, really, when the celebrities jump from one really gorgeous person to another really gorgeous person and seem to be happy. But what you don't see, and that I get to see a lot, is behind the scenes and the tears that these, celebrities actually have. But they don't show that in the media. So it makes it look like this is the thing to do. And in today's society where celebrities hold, almost like a godlike status for some, it looks a lot easier than it actually is. And I think that's the difficulty.
The Love Island, the whole Love Island thing, your relationships being paraded around. I don't like you. I want this one instead. I mean, I genuinely have never watched it, because I think I actually is everything I hate about modern society. It really is. But it's just so disposable and terrifyingly so.
Yeah, I think that, and also, you're right. Watching Love Island is a real experience, and I must admit I do watch it, but because I find it fascinating, and the hurt that is caused and the brutality towards each other that is encouraged by the way the game is set up, and it is a game with real people. I mean, the thing is, they go in fully consenting and understanding what they're doing, and I think they're adults. And I don't think their outcome is anything other than to be famous and to have lots of followers on Instagram. So, if that's the goal, they're going to tick that box, whatever happens. But I think with mental health, awareness at an all-time high at the moment, which is great. I think people are starting to question these things because, even the dating apps where you swipe for right if you like them and left if you don't, it's all based on very superficial information. And quite often that person is who they say they are anyway.
And driving insecurities, people's need to be perfect. It's, I talk about this a lot and James does as well, but from a perspective of looking at Instagram and the fitness influencers and things like that, it's just driving, this idea of something that actually isn't real. And it's just quite a sad state of affairs, but it makes me laugh when I said about Love Island. I mean, actually, it must be like watching guinea pigs to you. It's just like actually watching.
Well, I'm like so tempted to phone up and say, "Can I come over and can I just talk to these kids because they literally love it." Like, seriously. Yeah, I mean, I know they've got a team of therapists behind the scenes now, which they definitely need with the suicides that have happened from the back end of that show. And that's not necessarily to do with the heartbreak. That's more to do with the lifestyle change and like you say, the insecurities and the not being enough because, these are just kids off the street,
Yeah, it's tragic.
Exactly. So, kind of finally to wrap this up, what would you say your tips for anyone going through a separation or a divorce are? I mean, I know you're probably going to have a whole heap, but if you could just give us a few of your tips that you find really work for people more than others.
Well, obviously, I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow brought us conscious uncoupling, didn't she? Which is fantastic if you can do that. I mean, if you can go on holiday with your ex, or if you want to, great. But I see more of what I've termed aggressively severing end of the market.
I love that.
Aggressively severing, that's amazing.
So, I mean, my tips there, are really just to set your boundaries, be clear with your communication from the get-go. So, for example, I see people that get very upset during the breakup process because they haven't defined what is acceptable behavior with their exes during that process. So if they have a key to your home still, do they have to knock? Set those, knock on the door before you come in, or can they just come in and help themselves to a coffee? If you've got kids, what are the rules around drop-offs and pickups? If you can communicate well enough at the beginning to set out a plan of how you want things to work, then I think that will help you to maintain some respect and kindness for each other and minimize that upset. I think it's important to know that it is okay to cry, and it actually is an essential part of the healing process when you're grieving a relationship that meant so much to you. So don't be afraid to cry, but also ask for the help, because there are definitely things you can do to refocus your mind and to keep going. For example, one of the top tips that I use with my clients is if you're finding it very difficult, then don't use your ex's full name. So, for example, if your ex is, I don't know, Rachel or Robert, you would refer to them as R, not the full name. And the reason I say that is because it diminishes the intensity that a name has. So a name is loaded with emotions and feelings, and especially if you've been together for a long time, that can be very painful. They're being unkind to you. That name can make you feel sick even in some cases. So using an R, and if you're typing to your lawyers or if you're speaking to or sending a text to friends, I'd always use the small, the letter, the first letter, but not a capital, a teeny weeny little one.
Amazing. Great piece of advice.
Yeah, it's effective. It's small, but it is very effective.
Kind of takes the power out of it, doesn't it then? The power of what that name means.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so little things like that, you can, if you start, there's small tips that if you stack them together can make a massive difference and help you to really focus on creating that compelling future that you're excited to live, because there is hope out there. I mean, look at you guys, you've remarried, you're having a fantastic life, you're doing incredible things and helping so many people. I'm doing similar things. So both, we're all doing the same thing, proving that there is a fantastic life after breakup and divorce. It can be amazing, but you have to decide and you have to take action, and that's the important message.
You are an absolute superstar, hon.
Inspirational.
You really are. Like, if anyone's, just please look. If anyone's having any difficult times, please look at Sara. She's one of James's oldest friends, and just I've been privileged to meet you rather recently, but you're absolutely fabulous what you're doing. So keep on inspiring and helping people to live their best lives, basically, and get over a very difficult time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sara.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Lots of love.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you, so drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.